severe on the extremes.
No, we don't have to.
Okay.
We could have some.
You guys
No.
good to go? Okay. Special meeting of council Thursday, June the 4th, 2015. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. Motion to approve. So moved. Councillor Paulson, second by Councillor Hain. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. So the first item there with regards to the appointment of the chief election officer. So there's a report put together by Trudy there recommending that Trudy be appointed the chief election officer and another individual by the name of Lynn Ketch as the deputy chief election officer for the 2015 by-election. Councillor Hain.
Question through to staff. So would it be possible to switch these two around and make Lynn Ketch the CEO?
It's a bit moot. In the act, anybody who has a position who has a deputy is also them. Like, we are totally interchangeable. So that it's not indicative of who's doing the meat of the work. It's simply indicative of who's lead on something or who's ultimately responsible. But it's totally interchangeable. She can do everything the CEO can do, and we've had that discussion that the expectation is that she will be doing the majority of the administrative work.
So question to Jim. Jim, if there's an issue, does one person take the lead, or who do you view as the front person?
Well, I think that the most important part is to make sure that I think for the corporate administrator of the district to have the overall responsibility for the election as the chief election officer, in my mind, is a very good thing to have happen. I think we've actually proposed through this motion to engage a very good person in Lynn Ketch who will do and meet the council objective of trying to help with workload, because there's an awful lot of workload that has to happen in preparation for the election. Lynn has worked on several elections down in the Cowichan Valley and recently ran a referendum election for the province of British Columbia in Camel River. And in fact, this morning in a very brief meeting that we had with ministry representatives, they kind of gave her a seal of approval as being able to, really help us out here. So I think probably for Trudy having, if you want that sort of ultimate responsibility, she's the ongoing person here. After Lynn leaves, it's still going to be Trudy's responsibility, presumably for any other by-elections, both or any other matter of election. So I think it's important for the corporate administrator to also be the CEO. That's sort of my view of it. And I think it still gives this person control over this election. I think the one very important thing from my perspective coming in is we want to make sure this election is run absolutely to the rules that govern elections, and want to run no risk of something being overturned on a technicality. And I think it's very important. And so, I think that one thing I noticed is that Trudy and Lynn have already spent several hours just creating that schedule together. So I think we've got a very good team to do that.
Trudy? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll work well together. We both have a lot of experience. I've been doing elections since 1988. Participated in preparing the original template of the calendar that the province now uses, or the LGMA Association now uses in their manual. And as well, it's beneficial to Lynn too, because she hasn't had the experience of doing mail ballot voting. And so, we both learn from each other, and I think it'll work well.
I did express concern today when we met with the ministry representatives that there was some concern over the issue of scrutineers at the last election. And they agreed with my, and Mayor Collin was there, they agreed with the importance of making sure that the rules of conduct are followed very, very closely. So I think the most important thing as we run up to the election is to make sure the rules around scrutineering are clear to all involved, so there's no question on election day about what can and cannot take place. And again, I think it really comes back to, election rules in the province of British Columbia have tightened up a lot in the last 10 to 15 years and are different than they are for provincial elections. So I think it's important that we have good control over how the election is operated. So.
And just speaking of that, I'm not sure what the concern was about scrutineers. As chief election officer, we put out something in advance explaining what the expectations are for scrutineers. It may have been different than what they were accustomed to, but certainly everybody was well aware of the rules. And when a question was raised during the election time, in the fall, I discussed it certainly with June Hegland, who's since retired from the ministry, and she reaffirmed that, yes, it appears that for some reason people had adopted what's in the provincial legislation in the Provincial Election Act, which is not what is in the Local Government Act for municipal elections. So some of the things that were happening were inconsistent, and so those were corrected the last election. And of course, we will maintain that this election. And that's the same system Lynn's accustomed to.
Okay, Councillor Coulson?
No, I have nothing further than.
Okay, so we need a motion.
So I move that pursuant to the Local Government Act, Council appoints Trudy Coates as Chief Election Officer for conducting the 2015 by-election, and further that Council appoints Lynn Ketch as Deputy Chief Election Officer for the 2015 by-election.
We have a second of that. Councillor Haney. Any further discussion? None?
Sorry, those will be two separate motions then for
The
the.
second part will be a separate one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And there is a second one there.
With the Council authorizes the Chief Election Officer to expend up to $22,000 to deliver the 2015 by-election and instruct staff to bring forward a financial plan bylaw amendment for consideration in the fall if required.
Second?
Second by Councillor Haney. Discussion.
Yeah, even though I read that out, I'm not exactly sure what that means about the amendment for consideration in the fall if required.
Yeah, it's if required. Kind of, it's there, but
I think essentially what it means, Councillor Coulson, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Coulson, I think what it really means is that you're authorizing a maximum budget of, you already, I think, currently, the last report talked about, I think, smaller sums.
Yeah, 20,000.
I think the objective here is to conduct this election in the most economical manner possible.
Yes.
Right, but in terms of right now, specific money targeted for the by-election, so that would come out of surplus or?
that would be recognizing the minister's letter, for example, that it's not something that can be decided by council today, so
Right.
which is why it's put off to the fall for the full council to do the amendments, if required, recognizing it's at the purview of council at that time to make the decision.
Okay. So I'm also mindful of a few other items which might cause an amendment
Yeah, they
fairly shortly too.
but they based on the minister's instructions,
Kick those
be
out.
careful. Yeah, they might as well. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Gets us down to new business. We have an individual, Doug Lang, or C. Douglas Lang, I think technically is his name, but it's that, who is willing to step up and act as the interim director of financial services, so that we need a motion to appoint him to the position of Director of Financial Services pursuant to District of Landsville Bylaw number 36 and Section 149 of the Community Charter.
I move that. Because we don't have all that.
Well, I know, I
don't have all
I
that.
happen to bring it with me.
I just got to appoint Doug Lang.
Bylaw number 36, Section 149 of the Community Charter.
Yes.
And that would be effective June 3rd.
Bring the seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Coulson. Discussion. Doug's worked for us in the past, familiar with our systems, familiar with staff, so we thank him very much for willing to step up and assist us.
That's great.
Any further? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Which gets us to public participation. Okay.
We'll be adjourned.
Motion to adjourn by Councillor Haney, second by Councillor Coulson, I assume. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Man, was all this fast?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
I would have had something to say, there's no podium, so I'm okay.
Thanks, Bob.